Once upon a time, there was a hunter. There was a hunter who lived in the forest in a region that was a lot like Siberia. It was cold and there was snow, so much snow, more snow. And he lived in a cabin alone in the middle of the woods, Every day he would wake up and he would put on his fur hat and his fur pants and his fur coat. He had those big hats with the big ear things. And he would step out into the blizzard and the snow and he'd put on his snowshoes and he'd grab his bow and arrow and he'd hike up over the mountain and he would hunt. He was a good hunter. He would always catch a little something or a big something and then he would come right back to his cabin. And this happened day after day. He lived a very Ayurvedic life. He would wake up when the sun woke up and he would go to sleep when the sun went down. He didn't eat too much. He lived a lot like a wild animal. And one day he came back to his cabin, opened up the door. Can you all do that? And right there on the wood stove was a huge pot of vegetarian stew. It was in a big, crock pot, like one of those orange, Les Croissants, I don't know, they're French big pots or something. What are they called?
Le Creuset.
Yes, Le Creuset. Are you from France? Yes, oh my God. Say it again.
Le Creuset.
Le Creuset, yes, it was in a Le Creuset. And it was delicious. It was organic vegetables and it was it was everything. It was everything he could have hoped. And it was, he was a meat eater. He lived in the woods in the winter. All he ate was meat. So fresh veggies. There was no footsteps around his house. It was very disturbing. It was very curious. What's going on? Who came into my house? He was furious. He felt violated. Who went through my stuff? Who used my wood stove? But yet he was like, who used my wood stove? This is amazing. I've got a delicious soup. He was so beyond himself. Have you ever been sort of felt frustrated and sort of okay at the same time? He was like, wow, this soup's kind of okay. So he ate the soup and he wanted to save it, so he ate half of it. He put half of it in the snow. He was a little disturbed. He usually went to sleep every night at 7:30 when the sun went down, but he was kind of anxious because somebody went in his place. So he didn't quite fall asleep till 8:39, but eventually he went to sleep. And the next morning he woke up and he did what hunters are wont to do, and he went hunting. Can you all say that? He
went hunting.
Come on, you guys are in a boot, you're doing yoga or whatever, you're eating well, you're I can tell you're all fit. Look at this guy, he's sitting like a yogi. Let's hear it from our belly, let's hear it. He went hunting. Very good, oh my God. He went up over the hill and he came back, and he hung his things up on his cabin door and he opened the door. Let me hear it. And he looked inside and this place was spotless. Spotless, a toothbrush clean, it had lavender had been sprinkled on the floor and in the pillows, and it was like this was a man who lived alone. The place was usually ridiculously smelly. He lived alone in a cabin, in the woods, right? And all he ate was meat. You can imagine how the place smelled. And it was spotless and it smelled good. He was like, what? At this point, he felt a little bit mad because his stuff had been all moved around, and he was like, nonetheless, he went out and grabbed the remainder. He heated up the soup. He ate the rest of the soup. It was even better than it was the day before. The flavors had mixed more, as they sometimes do when you eat leftovers. Nonetheless, that night he went to bed, but he couldn't fall asleep right away because he was anxious, and he went to sleep at 7:30, but he didn't fall asleep. Have you ever just been unable to fall asleep? He couldn't fall asleep till 11:30. Finally, he fell asleep and he was out. Nonetheless, he still woke up as the sun came up, and he did what hunters are wont to do, and he went hunting. And he went up over the hill and he caught a few things and he came back. This time he was a little concerned as he grabbed the door, and what happened? And he looked inside. All of his clothes were perfectly folded. It was as if he had been to a laundromat in a boot. And they were like perfectly pressed. Everything was like perfect. It was even wrapped in a little thing of plastic, and they were on the shelves, and he like couldn't believe it. He's like, oh my God, what is this? But he sounds furious too. Like, oh my God, he's in my house. That night he couldn't sleep. Didn't sleep awake. Nonetheless, he still got up the next morning when the sun went up, and hey!
Went hunting!
He went up over the hill. And he started thinking, maybe I should go back early. He's not just any old regular hunter. He started thinking, he's like, maybe I should go back early and see if somebody's like, if I can find somebody in my cabin. So he decided to turn around quickly, and he went to the top of the hill, and he looked down, and sure enough, there was smoke coming from his chimney. And oh my God. He was livid, and he started to run. And he ran from tree to tree, hiding because he didn't want to be seen. So as he approached, he was kind of dodging from tree to tree. And he finally got to his cabin. And he was trying not to cough. And he pressed himself against it, and he looked and he peeked in the window. And sure enough, there was a woman standing at his wood stove with a long, beautiful green dress and red hair that went all the way down to the floor. Gorgeous red hair that went all the way down to the floor. All of a sudden, he wasn't quite as mad as he had been, but he was still a little perturbed, a little curious. But he was like, oh my God. So he crawled beneath the window, and he just finally got the courage he hung up his things outside, his snowshoes, and he took the door, and he went, perfect, you guys, just a little bit. And there was a beautiful woman standing right there. And she turned around, and her beautiful green eyes pierced him. And she could not believe who she was looking at, and he could not believe who he was looking at. And her eyes shot right through him. And she said, I am now the goddess of this house. He was like, I'm not, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's okay with me. Yeah. And she said, and I am part fox, part spirit, and part human. He said, oh, that's okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. And with that, she took off a fox pelt that was around her neck, and she hung it on the inside of that door. And she gestured to the delicious stew that had filled the cabin with its incredible aroma, sort of asking him if he wanted to eat. And he was like, yeah, no, I mean. So they sat down, and sure enough, they had a delicious meal together. And they started to talk. And one thing led to another. They must have drinking some Blue Lotus tea or something. Because sure enough, they too disappeared inside each other. They became the moon. They became the snow outside. There was nothing they did not become, and everything was nothing, and nothing was everything. And the hunter had never had an evening like that in his life. And again, for the second night in a row, he did not sleep. Nonetheless, the next morning, when the sun came up, he woke up and he did what hunters are wont to do, and he went hunting. And he put on his things and all his things and his fur, and he got his things and all his things, and he went up over the mountain. And he came back with his things, and they cooked their things, and they ate their things, and they had their things. They had a thing. You might say they had a thing. It was kind of conventional. She would stay home and cook and clean, and he would go out and hunt, and he was, sometimes the conventional thing can work. Sometimes it just, it's okay. It worked. It worked for them. It was good. And this went on for some time. Until about 3 months in, all of a sudden, one night at dinner, out of nowhere, has anything ever happened to you out of nowhere? Like something just happened, you weren't expecting it? And he just says, honey, I love you. I love you. I love you so much. You've changed my life. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. But just please take the fox pelt and put it on the outside of the door. Please. It smells. We live in a small cabin. It's about, 4 meters by 4 meters. It's not big. It's humble. Sometimes I just need air, and the window doesn't always work that well. Can you just put the fox pelt on the outside? She kind of gave a little Indian wobble, which sometimes means you never really know what it means. It's like, does it mean yes or does it mean no? And that night they went to sleep, and the next morning they woke up and he did what hunters are wont to do, and they went hunting. And he went up over the mountain and he came back, and again, day after day, night after night. And after about 3 months, one day he stood up. God! I told you! Please, just take the fox pelt and put it on the outside of the door. I can't take it. It smells in here. It's a lot. I love you. I love you. I do. But just please. You got to kind of extend your spine when you do. And the next morning, he woke up and he did what hunters are wont to do, and he went hunting. And 3 months passed again. And I don't want to yell too loud, but all of a sudden, one night at dinner, has that ever happened at dinner? Like, have you ever experienced that? God, I told you, boy! Take the fox pelt! Just explosion. And the next morning he woke up and he did what hunters are, and he looked and he felt for her. And she was gone. She wasn't there in the cabin. And he was naked and he threw the sheets off and he ran out into the snow, and her footprints were nowhere to be found. And he ran up to the mountaintop and he called her name, and he looked to the east and he could not find her. And he looked to the west and he could not find her. He looked north, he looked south, he looked up, he looked down. There was nowhere where he could find her. And they say, you know what they say? They say, that he still longs for the smell of that fox pelt. And to this day, he's never seen her again. But to this day right here, April 21st, almost Earth Day, 2025. He never has seen her again. And he still longs every day for the smell of that fox pelt. for the smell of that fox bell. Still longs for the smell